Only 2 minutes. I didn't do it first. She started speaking. I was like,
now, it's a whole other level.
that's not good identity.
Because you wasn't put in the corner.
You know what the most favorite example is? A corner.
Okay. I distracted now. Your order?
I'll kiss that piece.
Okay.
Like that, it's kind of, or flow down.
Yeah.
Straight down. Straight down.
No.
It's ironic that there are argumentations that we have to listen to the voice of the marginalized and oppressed, but I do not hear a single response to Andy and I's narrative in the last speech and how we relate to activity different than that of the world methodology of the 1AC. This is at least an ethos, credibility claim that they have a same systematic marginalization. If this leads to this, if anything, prove that we can't have this type of a thing of oppression of Olympics, i.e. that gay people are more oppressed than those African American communities when it says you vote for their struggle. But what does that mean when we can say vote for our struggle? That is why universally system of oppression has to be challenged on even the capitalist system in and of itself. I would sit across a couple of disads to their methodology that the permutation can't resolve. The first is the gay disad. That, at least in and of itself, means that we cannot talk about our identities in debate because those identities are a coming out process. Andy talks about his relationship with his family in terms of him having to be forced to connect personal narrative to his argumentation, or that his argumentation is perceived by the public to represent his identity. Means that you force people to come out and get that is a way in which you have a subjugation of that identity and debate. You also can see that people on the terrorist watch list for people who cannot talk about their identities. That is the new threat perception that the public will perceive, especially because they cannot talk about it, because it only puts their family at harm's way. Also the idea that people who are being stalked, they understand and that those personal identification or personal narratives cannot be discussed because it has things like gendered politics. It all means that they have to come out those type of violence relations. Sometimes that resistive strategy is one that is best for everyone. I will also send across, I think it's a little bit trivial to think that your protest, it seems that there's some sort of bond that comes from Andy and I have not subjugated or excluded. I don't think we've done it in a way that leaves unprotected forces of debate. Instead, it's a question of competing methodology in terms of what alignment you align yourself with, that the individual approach of the identity politics of World 1AC, and the idea the only vote to reaffirm the mission statement. I think he's in the wax pretty poetically in the 2AR about how you vote for something, but what you vote for then is to affirm the CEDA mission statement. That was their argumentation in 1AC, which means they can only win that all they do is trickle down in terms of debate, but not in the outside world. I also think it's slightly trivial for you to say that what you do causes discursive bonds. What does that mean for Skip, who was bitten by dogs or beaten with batons outside the streets of this very building because he protested and has fun and said, I don't think you can claim those have equal claims. Thank you. Andy makes a couple arguments. The one are the false sense that communist voting out doesn't change the fundamental structure that allows us to be here. We think we make progress. We don't realize the idea of progress is exactly what the problem is. The second is that capitalism, what gives you ability to be multicultural, this uses the choice that we have in order to distract the overall struggle against the economic system. Our Dean Evans, the one are given us these evidence argue that multicultural tolerance is part of the same matrix of racist violence. We can't understand true oppression as long as we are locked in capital. The third is commodification. And gives a pretty stellar example that the protest will be thrown into the t-shirt sold down the street, that those material productions or protests are done at the cost of people in third world countries. This protest will always be copped up, go up to use the further exploitation outbreaks. We take away the system's power over us. This is why it's a question of prioritization. Now, we only can have individual struggles prior or after the world. We break down the capital structure, how it creates those coalitional fractions. The protest demobilizes our movement, our court. The court case that they give examples are real examples of how the system are able to appease the masses. They didn't realize how truly messed up the system was. It's like taking Tylenol to cure cancer. The fifth is the experience can never deconstruct the system. They go on to describe our young piece evidence markers that our experiences are always superficial, that class, the foundation of this exploitation, because the fractures, the ways and the production and the places that we debate about these examples of a movement against slavery does not come from the fact that slavery was created because of capitalism in of itself. We read two pieces of impact piece evidence indicates that capitalism causes the unproductive to be defined as unproductive in of itself, i.e. when you are on top or you stylistic choices differ from the normal debate, you are viewed as unproductive, which means you are bound and excluded from that debate. These terms of capital, progress, and modernization are only the same point the capitalist system allows us to subjugate groups of people, and of itself also indicates that this is probably the reason why the slave mentality happened in the first place, because slavery is an economic system that allowed us to subjugate groups of people, not a question of race. It wasn't because they were black or white, but I really think it was a question because they were capitalist pigs. You wanted to only appease their own ends. While there are discussions of race and incorporating the sexuality into an economic system that allowed that race to exist in of itself, that economic, and you also see that in a world we don't question things like the economic benefits debate will collapse on itself. People like Trinity and people like Redlands are not able to come to these spaces to listen to what the affirmative wants to talk about because they're economically impoverished in terms of how they relate to that system of itself. It means all of the links are means that their methodology is mutually exclusive in terms of the one they see. They say we make it visible and that we have to make this type of change. That's our art, but it can't be your personal story against our personal story, but because that is a fraction of coalition, but instead universal stroke methodology is one that allows us to individually reject those systems of capitalism in the first place. Silence, minorities still oppressed is a question of why capitalism has caused that in the first place, i.e. those are the link examples we're giving at the top of the debate. You said slaves didn't help the free slaves didn't help those slaves in the first place. That's because it's an economic system of capitalism. It's not able to be resolved. They say voting neg doesn't solve anything better. All terms of individual rejection means you can do what you wish to please. That means you give money to Redlands, so that means that you do not wish will embrace because that is a capitalist material manifestation of marketable identity, or means that you remove and resist. The word no is a powerful word, or as it says, that's the way in which we resist the way that capitalist system has power over us, and those type of things that we choose to endorse inside or outside of the debate. I think it's pretty evident the only people who get to listen to what the affirmative talks about are those who can afford to be here. That is a sense of privilege that they are not coming to grips with. I think you're pretty presumptuous in the 1 hour in terms of what we think we should do or what we think our way of solving about. Well, Louisville can solve things like capitalist economic disparities. It's a question of what you vote for, which is to reaffirm the CEDA mission statement, not what you think Louisville does. You cannot quantify or qualify a lot of arguments she's making, i.e. the success of them, the success of the purpose, or i.e. that our ballot does nothing. What do you quantify and qualify those argumentations? This probably proves our fraction of coalition politics, these type of identity pits against each other, the reason why it happens in the first place.